All right, strap in, everyone. Today, we're going deep on the UN Development Program's work in Sierra Leone.
For 2023.
The stuff that really moves the needle, like democratic governance, sustainable development, economic empowerment,
All the good stuff.
the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Our compass for this deep dive is the UNDP Sierra Leone's 2023 annual report.
It's a gold mine, really. Full of data and stories that'll give you hope.
Oh, absolutely. And get this, Sierra Leone saw a big jump in women getting into politics this year.
It's huge.
Voter registration, nominations, elected officials, the whole 9 yards. How'd they manage that? Let's break it down.
Well, one of the UNDP's big focuses is inclusive democratic governance,
Right.
which boils down to making sure elections are fair, institutions are strong, and everyone's rights are protected.
So making democracy work for everyone, not just a concept on paper.
Exactly. And a big win this year was the surge in registered voters.
Yeah.
Over 3.3 million people, including a lot more women and people with disabilities.
Hold on, that's a massive leap from 2018, isn't it?
Yeah.
What changed this time?
They had some seriously effective voter education programs, reaching over 2.5 million people across the country.
Wow.
Think about that. They gave millions of people the knowledge and understanding to actually participate in their democracy.
That's amazing. And it's not just voting. The report talks about the UNDP supporting the National Civil Registration Authority, or NCRA.
Right.
They helped over 139,000 people get legal identity in 2023.
It might sound like a boring process, but legal identity is fundamental.
It is.
It's how people access basic services, exercise their rights, heck, even open a bank account.
Right, right. So over 139,000 people suddenly have a way to participate more fully in society and the economy.
Exactly.
That's huge.
And it's not just for adults. They registered over have a shot at healthcare, education, a future they might not have had otherwise.
So it's a lot of paperwork, but with a real purpose. Speaking of purpose, how's the UNDP working to strengthen the rule of law in Sierra Leone? The report gets into their support for the judiciary, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're working on a huge reform strategy and investment plan for the justice sector.
Okay.
And the impact is real. 1,779 inmates who were stuck in arbitrary detention finally got access to justice.
That's got to make a world of difference in their lives. What does that look like on the ground? Are we talking fairer trials, better legal representation?
All of the above, really. It's about ensuring due process, legal representation, fair trials, basically making sure the system doesn't just punish, but delivers actual justice.
Yeah.
Especially in a country still recovering from conflict, that's huge.
It really highlights how crucial a functioning justice system is for everything else. Speaking of fairness, the UNDP's work to make the system more gender responsive is pretty impressive.
They're tackling that on a lot of fronts. For example, they've refurbished court infrastructure, including a sexual offenses model court, equipped it with solar power, technology, furniture, the whole shebang.
Wow.
It's not just about functionality, it's about sending a message like, hey, we take these cases seriously.
So they're creating a space where survivors feel heard and supported, especially important with all the stigma surrounding gender-based violence.
Exactly. And it goes beyond the physical space. They're training police officers on handling these cases sensitively, providing legal aid to survivors, even working to change social norms that perpetuate violence.
It's a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Makes sense. You can't just fix a building. You have to address the whole system. And the results are undeniable. Over 700 survivors accessed justice in 2023, and there were 142 convictions.
Those numbers represent real lives changed, real justice served. It's powerful stuff. And this dedication to inclusivity, to leaving no one behind, it's all over their work on elections, too.
Yeah, I was reading about those tactile ballot guides they provided for visually impaired voters. 120,000 guides. Plus, they modified over 100 polling stations to be more accessible. Talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
It sends a strong signal. Everyone's vote matters, no matter their abilities. And they're actively empowering women to get involved in the political process, too.
So that's what I'm talking about. They're not just making it easier to vote. They're encouraging women to run for office, to lead, to have their voices heard.
They've got training programs, mentorship opportunities, public awareness campaigns. It's a whole support system for women in politics.
And it's working. The report says women made up 52% of registered voters, 36% of nominated candidates, and 33% of elected officials.
Yeah.
That's major progress toward gender parity.
It shows that focused action can create real change. But it's not just about national politics. They're also supporting women at the grassroots level, like with the Growth Accelerator program.
Oh, right. That's where Majora's story comes in, yeah.
Yes.
She's that young entrepreneur who's building a successful bag and shoemaking business with help from the UNDP.
Her story perfectly illustrates what investing in women-led businesses can do. It's not just economic empowerment, it's social transformation, creating jobs, inspiring others.
So we've covered inclusive governance and how the UNDP is making democracy work for everyone. But how are they tackling big issues like climate change and economic development? Let's switch gears and dig into that next.
That's where things get really interesting. They've got some super innovative projects focused on sustainability and building resilience. Think coastal communities adapting to climate change, fishermen benefiting from new infrastructure.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Tell me more.
So you wanted to hear about fishermen and infrastructure. Well, check this out. The UNDP is working on projects that directly improve these communities' lives. They helped build new jetties, benefiting over 6,000 fishermen.
Seriously, that's a total game changer. I mean, think about the impact on their livelihoods, their families.
Right.
It's not just concrete and steel, it's creating opportunities.
Exactly. And they're not just focused on the physical stuff, they're building resilience against natural disasters too, especially in those coastal communities, the ones most vulnerable.
Makes sense. Climate change is hitting those areas hard.
Yeah.
So what are they doing to help them adapt?
One thing they did was train folks from the Meteorological Agency in marine weather forecasting. They're also working on better early warning data collection at 6 different project sites.
So giving people the info they need to prep for storms and disasters.
Yeah.
That's vital. Saving lives and livelihoods.
Absolutely. Empowering communities to be more resilient, when climate change throws its punches. And that same idea of empowerment is driving their work on the blue economy.
Blue economy. You're going to have to explain that one.
Yeah.
I'm picturing a lot of blue paint, maybe some dolphins.
Not quite. Think of it this way. The blue economy is about using the ocean's resources in a way that benefits both people and the planet.
Okay.
It includes things like fishing and aquaculture, of course, but also tourism, renewable energy, even biotechnology.
So it's about creating a sustainable future for coastal communities while protecting the ocean at the same time.
Exactly. And the UNDP is helping Sierra Leone develop a strategic framework and a national action plan to really tap into this growing sector. They're bringing together government agencies, businesses, communities, everyone to chart a course for a sustainable blue future.
That's incredible. It sounds like a really holistic approach, recognizing that economic development, social well-being, and environmental protection are all linked.
You got it. It's about creating a future where everyone and everything can thrive. And speaking of thriving, let's get back to the Growth Accelerator program.
Oh, yeah. The one that helped Majora's grow her business, right? What other success stories have come out of that program?
Well, they gave grants and technical assistance to 18 women-led cooperatives and MSMEs, helping them expand their businesses and create jobs.
That's awesome. It's one thing to talk about economic empowerment, but seeing it actually happen is something else. These are real people's lives being changed.
And it's not just about supporting existing businesses either. They're also investing in skills development for young people, providing training in areas like construction, renewable energy, and ICT.
Those are hot skills right now. So it's about prepping the next generation for the jobs of the future, giving them the tools to succeed.
Precisely. Creating a more prosperous and equitable society by investing in its people. And this leaving no one behind thing, it's a constant theme in the report, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It pops up everywhere. Their work on inclusive elections, strengthening the justice system, reaching marginalized communities, it's like a golden thread running through everything they do.
A great example is their work on access to education for kids with albinism. They trained over 3,500 teachers about albinism and handed out informational booklets to create more understanding and inclusion in schools.
Wow. It's amazing they're tackling these ingrained social issues head on. I mean, addressing prejudice and discrimination takes real guts.
And they're not backing down from those challenges. Remember their work on disability inclusion during the elections, adapting polling stations, tactile ballot guides. It's about ensuring everyone can participate in the democratic process.
It's about making sure everyone feels valued and included, no matter their differences.
Exactly. And this inclusivity extends to their partnerships, too.
Right. They're not going it alone. They're working with a whole network of collaborators, government agencies, donors, civil society organizations, the private sector, even local communities.
Their partnership achievements are huge. They teamed up with UN Women to boost women's political participation, collaborated with UNICEF to set up a GBV helpline, and even partnered with FAO to create jobs and improve livelihoods for farmers.
Wow. Talk about the power of
Mm.
collaboration. It's like they're weaving this tapestry of positive change, bringing all these different threads together to create something beautiful and impactful.
It shows they understand that real, lasting change takes collective effort. They're not just coming in with solutions from the outside, they're working side by side with local partners to find what works for Sierra Leone.
And that local engagement is key.
Yeah.
Right? Making sure development efforts are tailored to the specific needs of the communities they're serving.
Absolutely. It's about building ownership, empowering Sierra Leoneans to lead their own development. One interesting approach they've taken is working with the government under cost-sharing agreements.
Cost sharing. So they're not just handing over money, they're rolling up their sleeves and working with the government to deliver services.
Exactly. This approach not only helps get services out there, but strengthens the governance capacity too. It's a win-win.
It makes so much sense. You ensure resources are used well, and local institutions are empowered to better serve their communities. It's like building a system that's built to last.
And that focus on sustainability is in everything they do. Their dedication to environmental protection, investing in human capital, they're thinking about the long-term well-being of Sierra Leone.
It's about building a better future for generations to come. But all this amazing work needs a dedicated team behind it, right? The report mentions the vital role of their human resources department.
Oh, for sure. They're the unsung heroes, keeping the engine running. In 2023, they recruited new staff for key projects, helped employees transitioning to retirement, and made sure everyone completed the mandatory training.
So they're taking care of their own people while working to empower communities across Sierra Leone.
Exactly. And they're investing in young talent, too, through their internship recruitment program, giving recent graduates the chance to get real-world experience.
It's like creating a ripple effect, empowering individuals within the organization and empowering communities throughout Sierra Leone all at the same time.
It's a holistic approach to development, understanding that lasting change requires both internal and external investments.
So we've talked about how they're investing in people, but what about the money side of things? The report has a whole breakdown of their expenditures and funding, right?
Yeah, it's all there, transparent and accountable. They actually exceeded their program delivery target, which shows how efficient they are with resources.
Impressive. It's great to see that transparency, being clear about where the money comes from and how it's used. Builds trust and accountability.
Absolutely. But more than the numbers, it's the stories that really bring the impact to life. The report has several testimonials from people whose lives have been touched by the UNDP's work.
Oh, I love those personal stories. They make the data real, remind us we're talking about actual people, real lives changing.
One that stuck with me was from Mohamed Ouma Bangura, the Minister of Youth Affairs.
Right.
He talked about the UNDP's commitment to partnership, working with the ministry, communities, and young people in both planning and implementation. He called it a trustworthy and accountable partnership.
That's high praise. It says a lot about the UNDP's approach to development, collaborative, inclusive, and locally driven.
And Joseph Ayamga, the country director of Sen Sierra Leone, echoed that sentiment. He praised the UNDP's partnership for helping communities break free from poverty and unlock their entrepreneurial potential.
It's inspiring to hear directly from the people they're working with, shows these partnerships are more than just words. They're producing real results.
And it's not just government officials either. Emma Waisuma, a VSLA boxkeeper from Conakry, talked about how the Village Savings and Loans Association has empowered women in her community, giving them a chance to participate in the local economy.
It's a good reminder that sustainable development starts at the ground level. It's about empowering individuals and communities to shape their own future.
And those ripples of empowerment can be felt everywhere. The report also has a quote from Gabriel Kapaka, the Deputy Director General of the Sierra Leone Meteorological Agency.
Okay.
He highlighted how the UNDP's support has helped the country expand its weather monitoring, which improves services for a bunch of different sectors.
So they're investing in infrastructure and capacity building that benefits the whole country in the long run. That's thinking ahead.
And it all goes back to their leaving no one behind commitment. The report has a whole section dedicated to this, their core principle.
Okay, let's get into that. What specific examples did they give?
Well, they talk about creating pathways for marginalized groups, including women, youth, and people with disabilities, to access essential services and economic opportunities.
That's crucial. If some groups are left out, you can't have true development,
Yeah.
right? It has to include everyone.
Exactly. For example, they worked with the Ministry of Social Welfare to build capacity on disability rights within the justice sector.
So people with disabilities have equal access to justice.
Yeah.
That's a basic human right.
Absolutely. And remember their work on adapting polling stations and providing those tactile ballot guides for the elections? Another way they're making sure people with disabilities can fully participate in society.
Creating a society where everyone feels valued, no matter their abilities.
And they're applying this commitment to other areas, too. The report highlights their efforts to improve access to quality education for kids with albinism.
That's fantastic. They're tackling some really deep-seated social stigmas there,
Yeah.
creating a more inclusive learning environment for those children.
And this focus on leaving no one behind is woven into all their work, from promoting gender equality to supporting youth empowerment to building resilience against climate change. It's the foundation of everything they do.
Okay, so we've seen how the UNDP is working to empower women and girls. But what about their broader efforts to promote gender equality overall?
They know that achieving the Sustainable Development Goals means having women and girls fully and equally involved, and they're taking concrete steps to make that happen.
What are some of those steps?
The report outlines 3 main areas they're focusing on: transforming systems for equal participation in elections, speeding up justice for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, SGBV, and amplifying women's voices to promote women, peace, and security.
That's a comprehensive approach. They're tackling the problem from different angles, addressing those structural barriers and cultural norms that hold women back.
Exactly. When it comes to elections, for example, they worked to boost the capacity of electoral management bodies to make sure they're following the 30% quota for women's representation.
That's a huge step towards ensuring women have a voice in decision-making. Did it make a difference?
Absolutely. The report highlights a significant jump in the number of women working as polling agents, women registering to vote, and even the number of female candidates.
That's really encouraging. Shows that with the right support and a commitment to change, real progress can happen. But what about tackling violence against women? What are they doing there?
They're focused on improving access to justice for survivors of SGBV and promoting gender-responsive case management. For instance, over 700 survivors got access to justice quickly because of their support for the judiciary and the family support unit of the Sierra Leone police.
That's amazing. How did they make that happen?
They provided legal aid through paralegals, refurbished those sexual offenses model courts in Port Loko and Kyla, whom we talked about earlier, and even updated the Sierra Leone Police Case Management Manual to include cybercrime investigations.
So it's not just about helping survivors. They're strengthening the systems that are meant to protect them in the first place.
Precisely. Tackling the problem from both sides, which is key for real change. They're also big on capacity building within the justice sector.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, they trained 200 police officers on that case management manual for investigating sexual and gender-based violence. They also trained corrections officers on gender-responsive prison management and worked with inmates on programs to change those social behaviors and practices that contribute to SGBV.
Wow. It's a multi-pronged approach, addressing both the immediate needs of survivors and the underlying social norms that fuel this violence.
And they're working to amplify women's voices in the peace and security arena, too.
And that's something I'm really interested in. What are they doing specifically?
Well, they supported the creation of a peace accord where 125 paramount chiefs and tribal authorities from 5 districts signed a symbolic peace cloth pledging to uphold women's peace and security during and after elections.
That's a powerful symbol of progress, recognizing women's role in peace building and promoting their participation in decision-making.
They also supported the spread of peace messages, training, and deployment of women election monitors, and the creation of a women's situation room to keep track of electoral violence and guide things towards peaceful resolutions.
These efforts are so important for a more inclusive and safe election environment, empowering women to participate actively and without fear. It really sounds like the UNDP is committed to advancing gender equality in Sierra Leone.
Absolutely. They're tackling this complex issue from all angles, addressing structural barriers, challenging cultural norms, and empowering women and girls to take their rightful place in society.
And this commitment is evident in their work across the board, from democratic governance and sustainable development to economic empowerment and humanitarian response. They're really putting their words into action. It's really inspiring to see how the UNDP is making gender equality a central part of everything they do, not just a side project, but a core value. But let's zoom out a bit and talk about the broader economic situation in Sierra Leone. The report mentions the country's still recovering from COVID-19 and dealing with the fallout from the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of years, no doubt. The report acknowledges that while the economy showed some signs of life in 2023, real GDP growth picking up a bit, there are still some major obstacles.
Obstacles, like what kind of challenges specifically?
Well, inflation's still a big issue, and then there's
Hmm.
the national debt that's a worry. Plus, the currency's been taking a hit, depreciating pretty fast.
Right.
It's a tough situation for any country, let alone one that's still grappling with the legacy of conflict and poverty.
So how is the UNDP helping Sierra Leone navigate these economic rough waters? The report talked about something called the INFF, right?
Yeah, the Integrated National Financing Framework.
Okay.
Basically, it's a strategic plan to get public finances in better shape and boost domestic revenue. Think of it as a roadmap to strengthen the country's financial footing and attract investments that support the Sustainable Development Goals.
So making sure there's enough funding to support all these incredible projects we've been discussing. But how does that actually work? What are some tangible examples of the UNDP supporting this INFF?
Well, first off, they've been working with the National Revenue Authority to encourage more businesses, especially those in the informal sector, to formalize their operations and start paying taxes.
Made sense.
Hmm.
Getting more businesses on the books, contributing to the tax base, creates a more stable and sustainable economic environment.
Right.
More resources for schools, hospitals, infrastructure,
Yeah.
the whole package.
You got it. And they're also focused on attracting private investment, the kind that drives sustainable development. They launched this thing called the SDGs Investor Map.
Right?
It helps connect investors with projects in Sierra Leone that align with those SDG goals.
So like a matchmaking service for investors who want to make a positive impact.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Recognizing that achieving the SDGs requires collaboration between public and private sectors.
Absolutely. And they've been busy on other fronts too. They worked with the Ministry of Trade and Industry to figure out the best spots for special economic zones and what conditions are needed for them to really thrive.
Special economic zones, just a quick reminder, what are those again?
Basically, they're areas with special incentives and regulations designed to attract foreign investment and stimulate economic growth,
Right.
like hubs for innovation and job creation.
So the UNDP is helping Sierra Leone build a foundation for long-term economic growth. Not just Band-Aid solutions, but a sustainable system.
You got it. And they're exploring all sorts of innovative financing avenues. For instance, they've been looking into the potential of diaspora finance, tapping into the resources and expertise of the Sierra Leonean diaspora as a source of development funding.
That's brilliant. Mobilizing the skills and capital of those with strong ties to the country could be a game changer.
And they're playing a key role in coordinating aid efforts, making sure everyone's on the same page, and monitoring progress on the SDGs. They even helped put together a pilot voluntary local review, which is essentially a self-assessment of how the country's doing in terms of achieving those SDG targets.
It seems like they're working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure development efforts are effective, well-coordinated, and aligned with those global goals. But beyond the INFF, the report also touched on their work addressing poverty, right?
Yes, they calculated the National Multidimensional Poverty Index using data from the 2019 Demographic and Health Survey.
And what did that data show?
The encouraging news is that the overall rate of multidimensional poverty decreased between 2017 and 2019.
That's a step in the right direction. But I imagine there are still areas with significant poverty, especially in rural regions.
You're spot on. The report highlights that the poverty rate in rural areas is more than twice that of urban areas.
A stark reminder that progress isn't always evenly distributed. You can have positive national figures, but it doesn't mean everyone's benefiting equally.
And that's why the UNDP's focus on reaching the most vulnerable is so important. They're working to bridge those gaps and create a more equitable Sierra Leone where everyone has the opportunity to flourish.
It's been a truly eye-opening deep dive. We've covered so much: strengthening democratic institutions, empowering women and girls, promoting sustainable development, tackling poverty. The UNDP's commitment to leaving no one behind is really something special.
It's a testament to the fact that even with all the global challenges we face, real progress is achievable. And it all starts with collaboration, inclusivity, and a vision for a better future.
I couldn't agree more. If you want to learn more about the incredible work the UNDP is doing in Sierra Leone, I highly recommend checking out their full 2023 annual report. It's packed with inspiring stories, insightful data, and a roadmap for a more sustainable and equitable future. And that's a wrap for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.